Good morning and happy Friday, my dear friends. I hope this finds you well. And for some of my friends, I think it's already Saturday. It's difficult talking to an audience around the world, and never did I think I would. This is an appreciation video as well as a requested video. First, the appreciation. Shout out to Doug Hanson. Welcome back. Hey, everybody. I'm trying to keep politics out of here. I appreciate if I upset any of you. If I upset any of you with some of my commentary or some of my visuals, talk to me. Talk to me in the comments below. Send me a direct message. My email is actually on the profile. You can even email me. Let's work it out. Let's work it out. Doug, much love, much peace, and understanding. Today's video is brought to you by George Jefferson. Yeah, I love the name because I grew up watching George Jefferson. But he asked me to talk about my alcohol days. What did I drink when I did drink? And how did I quit? And things like that. So, let's start with when I was young, I really enjoyed, and how has cannabis impacted my drinking? Okay, let's start with my history of drinking. I started drinking later in life than I did my toking. I toked for a couple of years, but I started drinking probably around 15, 16, and mostly then it was just to get drunk. It was the idea that drunk is a state that we should try to reach often. I drank a lot when I was in my teens. By the time I moved on my own out of BC to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, living on my own, I was living a kind of neat life, but I didn't know how to live on my own, and I didn't know how to control my drinking. And I found myself in my first couple of years alone, my first year and a half, drinking whiskey, straight, no mix. I would every single day buy a bottle of whiskey, bring it home, pull yesterday's bottle out of the freezer, which is full and waiting for me, put today's bottle in for tomorrow so that it would be good and cold, and then just start drinking it out of a cup, 1 or 2 ounces at a time, and usually finish the bottle that night, and almost every night. Then just before I met my first wife, I woke up one day, and me and one of my drinking buddies were not in the house. We were on our roof, passed out on our roof, sleeping on our roof. It was a spring morning. It was cold. We were covered in dew and a horrible headache. And I realized then my drinking had to stop. Long story short, I did quit that day, and I didn't drink for a couple of years. I quit smoking that day, and I didn't smoke for 9 months. But shortly after that, I met my wife, and we got married, and on the honeymoon, there was a lot of stress. I took one drag of a cigarette, and that was it. Back to smoking. Then, after a couple of years, because the woman I married liked drinking, I started drinking with her again. But I found myself mellowed, and I was drinking beer and just enjoying beer, and I would only drink once or twice a week. That went for quite a while, and really what happened in my life was except for my teenagehood, I'd never mixed alcohol and cannabis. During the periods of time for a year or two that I'd enjoy cannabis, I barely touched alcohol. And then I would start drinking alcohol and I'd barely touch cannabis. So yes, once in a while the two mixed, and not every time they mix I have a bad reaction. But that was a rather steady thing in life for a while. That was a pretty steady scene, was for quite a few years. A little bit of drinking, a little bit of cannabis, usually not mixing the two. Most of the time I stayed away from the alcohol though. It was just a temporary thing. Then my career took off and I started traveling a lot and going all around Canada and sometimes into the US, and often meeting with people for dinners and often being taken out for things. Just a minute, my dog needs let in. Just realized it's snowing like crazy outside. Anyways, back to it. I started traveling a lot and I started drinking a lot and I started to enjoy craft beer. My favorite, Rickard's Red. Any red beer, I loved the flavor and the taste. Flavor and taste. I loved that beer. And really I got to the point that I was drinking. I had kind of put cannabis aside, and this was bringing me up from the year 2000 to about 2003, where my drinking was the heaviest. But I was still not really getting drunk. I didn't like being drunk. I would have 3, maybe 4 beer, but every single day of the week. And I was starting to feel sicker and sicker until one day I talked to a friend and I told him how I was feeling. He says, "You got to get to a doctor." And I had just moved to Calgary. I didn't have a doctor. So a friend said, "Go see mine." So a lot of tests done, and then I got called in, and I remember June 5th, 2003, I was told I have cirrhosis of the liver. I was told you can quit. You don't really have to because you're dying. You got 6 months to 2 years. You're out of it. That was devastating. Devastating. I drove home. I had to pull over 3, maybe 4 times and cry. It's just I was in a daze. On the way home, like every other day for years, I stopped at the liquor store and grabbed a 6-pack of beer. And I got home and I was just putting them in the fridge, and I heard the guy saying again, "You're dying." And I realized my family, and I'm really the patriarch. I need to look after my family, and I can't die. And I took all 6 of those beer and I poured them down the sink. And I found myself for the next couple of days really itching for beer, And that's where cannabis came in. I phoned my old dealer and said, "You still got stuff?" And he said, "Oh, I sure do. So come on by." And that's what got me off of alcohol. I was able to, whenever I felt bad, I could take a toke and I would feel good. And I realized, you know what, I can do without this. Once I realized that, I got my health in gear. And yes, it was a 2-year fight and a 2-year battle, and it was difficult, but I'm still around, so I didn't go. And my liver is clean now, but it's damaged from that. It's sensitive, so I would never drink again. And I try not to take any pharmaceuticals because they can damage the liver and the kidneys quite extensively. So that's my alcohol background. I would never go back to it. I would never take another drink. I do miss the taste of Rickard's Red. I will always miss that sweaty glass of beer, cold beer that's sweating during a hot summer day. I will never lose track of how wonderful that can taste. But I will also never forget trying to tell my 3 kids at the time, and I now have 4, Daddy's dying. That was devastating. I'll never drink again. So yeah, I had a few of those green outs because of alcohol and mixed with cannabis, but most of my life they didn't mix. They were separate and unique. And the best days were on cannabis and the worst were on alcohol. So I try not to remember those too much. Well, friends, this is a longer one than usual. Peace and cheers, love and harmony. Catch you on the flip side, and don't forget, subscribe if you haven't. Watch another video on this side. And give the old thumbs up. If you like this, give me the thumbs up. Let me know you liked it. Peace and cheers. Love and harmony.